33-story hotel and condo project.
I'd probably be
Okay,
like
like
that.
stop, tap.
This is a plan by the community for the community.
This one here, show me.
No problem, Ken. Thanks for having me.
It's Kent Mulgat for Kelowna Now. And we're joined by Mike Golick from the Canadian Mental Health. Mike, thanks for joining us on Kelowna Now. So, with all that's going on in Kelowna right now, people encounter others who are clearly suffering some mental health issues. So I thought it was great to have you in here to give us a bit of background on where you see services to help these people going, and maybe some ideas on how people might sort of approach the situation when they encounter it. So first of all, you were saying before our interview that there are some facilities that are on stream, that are going to be coming on stream, to give maybe some better services for...
Yeah, I mean, I think when we talk about, in particular, the homeless issue in Kelowna, obviously there's a lot of attention on it right now, and one of the things that we're involved in, and through BC Housing, there's a couple new supportive housing projects that are coming online. One is Heath House, and it's approximately 40 units. It's just being renovated now up on the highway near Leithhead. Once operational later this fall, we'll be able to take in 40 individuals directly out of shelter who are in the streets. The other one is Hearthstone, which will be operated by the John Howard Society, again funded through BC Housing, and that's supportive housing for approximately another 40 to some individuals.
Right.
So the good news in our community is that within the next 6 to 8 months or so, we will have 80 some new units of supportive housing. And so what that means is that individuals who are in shelter currently in our community will have a home and a place to live. And what we know about homelessness is, again, I think as we mentioned, is the solution here. It's complex, and it absolutely is. What's been proven to work, though, and this is the part that's kindergarten simple, is that we know that to end homelessness, you have to give people a home. And that's just where the work starts. To keep them housed, that's a whole other piece, and that's where the supportive aspect of pieces come into play.
So it's nice to hear some housing is on the way, real housing, better than just a bedroll.
Absolutely. And I think, again, emergency shelters serve an emergency purpose. But emergency shelters aren't housing. Emergency place is a place for someone to go to have a roof over their head for the night. Again, what's been proven, and cities like Medicine Hat that have been talked about, others across Canada, Edmonton's had some really good success, is that when you give people a home, you restore their dignity, they start to heal, they get healthier, and you end their experience of homelessness.
Right. So something like, and I don't want to get caught in the back eddy of the pros and cons of the emergency shelter cornerstone, but getting that many people with all of their different issues all in such a compact facility at once is probably not ideal from a mental health perspective either.
Well, I mean, any shelter environment, when it's used for its own purpose, is an emergency response. And what I know about mental health and substance use, having done this for 25 years, and we had talked about that, is that people end up on the street sometimes because of unresolved mental health and substance use concerns. Things just become too much. They don't have the natural supports that you and I would take for granted as far as friends and family, and they end up out there. But the other side of the coin is the people that end up on the streets that then have to try to work within the system. And sometimes mental health and substance use concerns develop as a result of being homeless. And when you're in an environment where there's 70, 80, 90 people within close quarters, how you live looks very different than when you have your own bachelor or one-bedroom suite where it's you, it's independent, you have your own space, and you're able to relax and be at home. And so there's a huge difference between an emergency shelter and housing, and what we know works is housing.
Right. We will see people sometimes on the street who are clearly in some sort of distress. Sometimes, it could be something innocuous like talking to themselves, sometimes shouting. Now they're swearing, and there's things that we see right out our windows here. Do you have any advice for people who maybe have some compassion but aren't sure whether they should approach someone who seems to be...
Well, I think the first real thing I would say to anybody is that first, see that person for an individual, that they're a human being. I've not known anyone in my work over the course of my career who's ever said to me, you know what, the goal that I want to be a homeless person when I grow up, or when I hit 25 years old, I want to make sure that I'm on the streets and I'm addicted to substance use. That just doesn't happen. People out here, and it's hard, especially when there's a number of them, It's often easy to write it off, or certainly when people engage in behavior that isn't necessarily safe for the community, to not see individuals as human beings. The truth is the people that are in Kelowna certainly are someone's son, someone's daughter. In terms of a person's response, or in terms of how someone might respond, that's really up to them and their own individual comfort. I think there's a misnomer that people that are experiencing mental health crises can be a threat to other people. In some cases, that may be the case, but ultimately it's not. And I think if someone's looking to help, I'd say understand that it's a human being. Don't be afraid to approach, but if you don't feel comfortable, don't approach either. If you see someone who's absolutely struggling, who you feel could be a threat to themselves or others, you can pick up the phone and you can call 911. The RCMP have a PAC team where there's a mental health worker that rides along with an RCMP member whose sole role is designed to come and help assess those individuals and get them the help that they need. So care about people, understand where they're coming from. Don't put yourself in a situation where you feel uncomfortable. If you want to give, but you don't want to give in that way, you can support organizations that are doing some of the work in the community, whatever that might look like.
Mental health is something that mental health issues are pretty common, aren't they? You were throwing some numbers up.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the 1 in 5, and we know that over the course of any year, 1 in 5 individuals is going to experience a mental health issue. We also know that there's the other 4. And the other 4 are the family members of, the coaches, the teachers, the employers, someone that loves them, lives with them, teaches them. And so really mental health, we know, does affect everybody. And so I think when we strip back the details, we also have to understand that mental health, not unlike other healthcare issues, is just that. I think oftentimes, and one of the struggles with mental health, and especially substance use, is the stigma that goes along with it. And our work is to address that stigma, to make sure people are having conversations about it and understand what it's really all about, not just what people think or believe that it might be.
We have been seeing more of that. There's that Bell Let's Talk days.
Yeah.
And it does seem to have kind of gotten that issue into the conversation.
Yeah.
Are we headed in the right direction in terms of people being able to sort of face and discuss this issue without so much stigmatization?
I think absolutely. Bell Let's Talk and initiatives like that really elevate the conversation. People coming out and saying that they've experienced mental health issues. I know last year, as we were working to establish the Foundry Integrated Youth Clinic, we had a partnership with the KGH Foundation called Not Alone. The goal of that was to raise $2 million to support that initiative. The goal was met in 7 months, but what it did, as importantly, is it elevated that conversation. And when you realize that, again, it affects us all, you'd be surprised how many people have a similar story. And when we start to talk about it, what that does is it allows us to look at it in the way that it's meant to be looked at, as a healthcare concern, something that is treatable and manageable. And it also helps us to reduce some of the stigma that comes with mental health.
Tell me if I'm right. When I see obvious signs and large numbers of people who are clearly struggling with drug addiction and mental health issues, I see that as an outcome of a society that's kind of let people down in various ways. It's sort of like, isn't this just a sign of how we've kind of messed up a little bit?
Well, I think certainly it's a symptom of a bigger issue. There's no doubt about that. Again, mental health it doesn't discriminate. We all have a connection to it. Sometimes the services that are available do, and we need to do a better job of getting to know what it looks like, what it really is, and then really strongly advocating for the right kind of supports. Again, when it comes to the homelessness issue, we know that housing plus supports makes all the difference in the world. We know that there's treatments out there that have shown to be really effective. We know when it comes to substance use, we've got a crisis in our province right now with opioids and all those elements. Government is looking at that and is responding to it, and it's certainly going to take an ongoing investment to build the right kind of resources. The 2 housing units that I talked about are a step in the direction, and I know there's a lot of work that's ongoing not only in the community, but at a provincial and a federal level to make sure that resources to address these issues are getting into community to make all the difference in the world.
There's this Journey Home Task Force. I take it you sit on that, and I know you don't speak on behalf of the task force, but yet you're on it. And I'm hearing from you a little bit of optimism. There's some facilities that are on the way. Some people might look at things that are going on and throw up their hands. But it sounds to me like there's some reason for optimism on this front.
There certainly is reason for optimism. I think, one of the things that we talk about this all the time is that people want to be able to push the easy button and say, here's the solution. And there are some solutions, but it isn't easy and it takes time. And the optimism that certainly we hold is that, again, and I think that's exemplified by some of the new supports that are coming online. And again, I want to emphasize the right kind of supports. We're moving in the right direction. There's absolutely more that needs to be done and will be done as time goes on. But as the community continues to pull together, I think we're going to see a significant positive impact for our community.
Terrific. Mike Golick, thanks very much.
Thank you, sir.
Canadian Mental Health, for coming in and speaking to us on Kelowna Now.